Alright guys, here we go. We've got lesson 46 from Saxon 76, and this is about multiplying by 10 and 100, which is a super simple way to make problems easier for yourself. So here we go. 2 times 10, we know, is 20. If we think of this 2 times 10 as 2.0 times 10, and we know the answer is 20, the way you can think about it is when I multiplied by 10, I took this decimal from the 2.0 and I moved it over one digit to the right, because 2.0 times 10 was 20, so it's just like having a decimal right here. I moved it over one space. So let's look at 64 times 10. That's the same as 64.00 times 10. If I take this decimal and I move it over one space, it's going to be 640, and this is where I move the decimal to, 0.0. I just moved it over one spot. Now, when I multiply 4 times 100, I know in my heart that the answer is going to be 400. Let's look at it with moving the decimal. Here's my 4.00 times 100. I take this decimal and I move it over 2 spots this time because I have 100. I have 2 zeros. Same thing as multiplying it by 10 and then multiplying it by 10 again. When I move it over 2 spots, I go from 4.0 to 400.0. So here's 74 times 100. When I have 74.00 times 100, I take my decimal, move it over 2 spots, and I get 7400. And that's where my decimal will go, and I can put a 0 after it to make it look pretty. So the rule is, when we multiply by 10, we shift the decimal one place to the right. And when we multiply by 100, we shift the decimal places 2 places to the right. So now take the next sheet out, which has the whole list of practice problems for multiplying by 10 and by 100. Stop the video right now and go through and try F through N and see what you get. And then when you're all done with that, then turn the video back on and I'll run through them zippity quick and we'll compare answers. So stop the video, be good. Alright, if you're a good little boy or girl, you stopped the video and you did all the problems. So now we have this whole set of problems that I'm going to run through. We have 56 times 10. If I take a decimal, let's pretend, 56.00 times 10. If I move that decimal over one spot, I end up with 560.0. Here's 78 times 100. I'm going to take this decimal, I'm moving it over once and twice, and I'll get equals 7800. Alright, 96 and 4/10 times 10. I'm only moving it over once because I'm multiplying by 10, and I get 964. 96.4 times 100. Now this one's a little different because I've got my 96. If I move that decimal over one spot, I just ran out of spaces. To move it over another spot, I have to shove in a 0 in there. So it's going to be 9640 point, and then I could put 00. Alright, 32 and 1400ths times 10. I'm multiplying by 10, move it over once. I get 321 and 4/10. 32 and 1400ths times 100. Move it over twice because I multiplied by 100. I get 3214. Alright, this one I have 0.34 times 10. I take this, I multiply it by 10 by moving that over one spot. So now I have 03.4. Well, that's just, I can get rid of that leading 0. That's the same as 3.4. Okay, what about 0.35 or 3500ths times 100? There we go, moving it over twice, I end up with 35. Alright, what about 56.2234 times 100? I'm going to move it over 2 spaces, 1, 2, and it's going to snug in there right between the 2 and the 3. So I get 5622.34. I got overzealous. Here we go. Let's move the paper up so you can see everything. So now you can see that by shifting it over by 1, I've multiplied by 10. Shifting it over 2, I've multiplied by 100. So let's look at the situation where we have a division problem and they're asking us to divide by a decimal number. So here we have 4.2 divided by 0.6. Now in the previous lesson we learned how to do like 4.2 divided by 6. So if this was a whole number, we'd be happy and moving on. But we have a problem because now we're dividing by a decimal. Well, let's write this division problem in this form. So 4.2 over 0.6. That's the same thing as 4.2 divided by 0.6. Well, if you remember from days gone by, we're allowed to rename a fraction by multiplying the numerator and the denominator by the same exact number, because it's just like multiplying by, what? 1, right? Because 10 over 10 is 1. And now I'll have 42, because I moved it over one spot, multiplied by 10, over what? Well, I take this decimal over 6. Well, we know that 42 divided by 6 is 7. Look at that. That was so much easier than 4.2 divided by 0.6. So let's look at this practice problem here. This one looks really hard. So here we have 0.0030 divided by 1.5. Okay, this is going to take a couple of lessons into account for how to do it. So let's say I want to get rid of this decimal because I don't like dividing by decimals. So if I multiply this by 10, the decimal will go over here and I'll have a 15 on the bottom. That would be nice. So let's multiply the top and the bottom by 10. And on the top, I'll move it over one spot and I'll have 0.030 over, well, if I move this over 1, 15. Okay, well that's still not as easy as this practice one up here. Let's do the division over here. So here we've got 0.030 divided by 15. I'll let you write that. All right, here we go. We're dividing by a whole number, so we can just float that decimal straight up. I'm going to make it nice and big. And now let's talk. All right, 15 doesn't go into 0, so I put a 0 up there. 15 still doesn't go into that 0. I put a 0 up there. 15 will not go into 3, so I put a 0 up there. Ah, but now if I say 15 times 0 is 0, 3 minus 0 is 3, bring down this 0, 15 will go into 30 2 times. And 15 times 2 is 30. And wouldn't you know, I have no remainder. So that's very nice. So our answer here is 0.002, which is what? Well, this is the tenths, the hundredths, the thousandths, so that would be 2 thousandths. All right, let's try this guy. All right, so we've got our little, well, okay, let's do it this way. Let's do it with a fraction first. We have, make sure you can see what I'm doing. We have 0.648 over 0.08. All right, now this time, if I multiply this denominator by 10, I'd only move the decimal over to there, and that wouldn't clear it. I have to move it over twice. To do that, I have to multiply by 100. So let's multiply the top and the bottom by 100. And I will end up with 64.8 over 8. Get it? So now the last thing to do is to figure out what that is. Let me bring in a piece of scratch paper since I kind of ran out of room. And we'll do it on a piece of scratch paper, or at least I will. Okay, so we had 64.8 divided by 8. Well, 8 won't go into 6, but 8 will go into 64. 8 times 8 is 64. Do my subtraction. I have a 0 here. Carry down this 8. And then 8 will go into 8 one time. 8 times 1 is 8. Do my subtraction, and I've got a remainder of 0. And I always, always, always need to remember to take this decimal and float it right up into my answer. So on this page, I've got the 64.8 over 8 equals 8.1. And that's the same exact answer as I would get doing this on a calculator. Because all I did is I took my fraction, I made it into an equivalent fraction, and then did the division. So guys, that was lesson number 46. Pretty straightforward. All right, go do it and then come back for lesson 47.